It was the hunter's first time outside of the Montana. He came to Chicago to see his wife, whom he had not seen in 20 years. When he went outside from the terminal, the sky was thick and gray with a strong wind. Snow will be coming, he thought. A woman from the university met him and took him to visit his wife. He remembered the first time he met his wife. It was 1972. She was a magician assistant who was very beautiful and 16 years old. She was an elfin. The hunter was watching her magic show. Looking at her pink fine bone face, he was totally attached and fell in love with her. 2 years later, she was 18, and after she asked him to let him drive her to his cabin. Near there, they saw a sleeping bear. She said she wanted to touch him. Her voice sounded loud and out of space in that wood. "You're crazy," he whispered, as he watched, horrified. She turned and placed both hands, opened her fingers, and touched Bear's chest. "I'd like it," she said later, back in the cabin as he built up the fire. The hunter watched the fire, the flames cutting and solving. "Stay with me," he whispered to her. She stayed. The hunter had nightmares. The night before, he had three dreams and he became a wolf during the dream. He was mad with hunger and running under the moon. She told him about this, but he didn't remember. He thought maybe he talked in the sleep. In a strong wind day, they saw a dead herring. It was frozen because its anchored into the ice. It must be struggled before it died, so it died upright and opened its wings. She kneeled it in front of the bird. She said she could feel this bird. This night, she couldn't sleep, and she told the hunter she knew where the bird went before her died.
Hunter took out his wife every day. She learned what she could in the winter, touching animals and seeing what they did before. She felt foreign and keen sensitivity bubbling in her blood. The larger animal, the more powerfully it could shake her. That's all about their winter. The first spring came and he married to her. 20 years later. It was his first time to see her in the last 20 years. She was not who he'd known anymore. No accessories on her but wrinkles. He and she couldn't be close to each other but looked at each other a couple of times. Warmth and recognition were how she looked over at him. Back to 20 years earlier. Spring was the time for Hunter to work. Clients called him again and again to guide their hunting. Meanwhile, she was wandering around the cabin and not really doing anything. But he still had to work. Summer and autumn came. He went for hunting 7 days a week. What he did at home was only eating, cleaning his rifle, or other things for the next hunting. While he was busy like that, she was enervated and slept long hours every day. Winter was coming outside. The winter was really severe. For 4 months, December to April, the phone line went down and stayed. Some hibernating animals and some in ranches were killed. What was disturbing Hunter and his wife the most were coyotes. They came to Hunter's crawl space several times, and one night he couldn't stop them running. Elk arrows were all he had, and there were probably 10 coyotes. He felt teeth go to the bone of his arm, and hot breath on his cheeks. He was bleeding on his wrist and thigh. After Curtis gone, all he thought about was digging truck because he and his wife needed food. But he crashed it through 4 times and gave up digging it. It was 10 miles from home and 30 miles away from town. It was cold as much as he thought he would die if it didn't get warmer. He crawled for home. It took all night and all the next day. She was kneeling on the floor, ice in her hair, lost in some kind of torpor when he was back home. They had only flour, so he went out to fish and hunt for the meals. At the same time, she slept 18 to 20 hours a day in the winter. Spring came. They could go to town and get food. She regained her health, took on energy, no longer lay under firs dreaming all day. She was obsessed to reading books in the spring.
In November, the hunter and his wife crossed countryside. They found a winter-killed elk. Raven was flying around it. The hunter's wife put her palm on its leathered skull. She could feel its life flowing out. She saw where it goes and what it says. The hunter didn't believe her, but his wife told him it was like she could know his dream about wolves. That February, a driver dropped it into the river, and he died. The hunter's wife saw this, put her hand on his arm. When her finger touched the driver's body, she saw his life and his son. The son played with the driver. She was so shocked. It was like she played with a boy together. There are a lot of people. The men who were touching her or touching the driver saw what she saw, felt what she felt. Rumor and gospel were everywhere. Finally, the hunter had heard. He still didn't believe her. He thought she hypnotized people. It was just tricks. His wife asked him to go together with her next time. Someone knew her supernatural ability, so they paid her and did some performance. One day, the hunter found her money. He was so angry because he thought she took advantage of that people and took their money. This was cheating. They quarreled with each other. In the first thoughts, he would go out to the river, try to lose himself. He felt everything was out of his control. As hunting season came on, he took a client to the forest. He said he saw a wolf, but the client was so surprised because there haven't been wolves here for 20 years. The hunter couldn't tell the difference between dreams and reality. Next evening, the hunter went out alone, and his wife tracked him through snow. She saw the hunter shoot a doe, and there was so many blood. She grabbed the doe's leg. With her other hand, she held the hunter's wrist. She could see the doe's vision. The hunter also could say. He felt so afraid. Then he ran. Finally, the hunter's wife left and didn't turn back. They had been married 5 years. 20 years later, he saw his wife was interviewed at the television. She had written 2 books and had traveled the world. Then he wrote her a letter. A week later, he received her invitation. He saw his wife. She came in, elegant in her suit, and did performance. The hunter could feel something happen. In his mind, he saw a sea emerging from fog. The sea was bright. He was in the fancy world. When he opened his eyes, he walked to the pond and stood near it. Finally, he believed his wife, and he took her hand.